You could separate golf fans around the world by putting them into one of two categories. The first of which is going to be the more dedicated follower to the sport who recalls Stewart Cink in today's full swing analysis video as a man who is a legend slayer who fended off Tom Watson to win the 2009 Open Championship after securing a 4-hole aggregate playoff victory. Or if you're not as clued into the sport, you may only be familiar with Stewart Cink for having gone viral on the internet a couple of years ago for having the best golfer's tan of all time. Regardless of how closely you've been following Stewart's career to this point, one thing you should be aware of at this present time is that Stewart is for sure one of the most informed players on the planet in 2026, having won so far this year 2 senior major championships, with the most recent having come this past weekend in his home state of Alabama at the Regents Traditions, and that marks his 4th win out of his opening 7 starts. So a phenomenal start to 2026, and looking forward to getting stuck into the golf swing of Stewart Cink here for you today. Considering Stewart has been at the very top of the game for a number of decades at this stage, I thought it would be only fitting to show you an evolution of his swings throughout the years. With the most recent change, I'm going to reserve until the end, which in my opinion, it's giving him a real distance advantage on the Seniors Tour. So make sure you hang around until the end to check that out. But before we get stuck into the technical breakdown, let's show you this face-on view of Stewart Cink in full flow from a little earlier in his career. So some setup pieces to note here. We can see there's quite a bit of lead foot flare at address. And we can also see, if we zoom in here a touch, you can note that his grip with both hands is certainly on the strong side, with both hands rotated away from the target. Certainly able to see plenty of knuckles when he looks down at that lead hand. And when we point out exactly where the V that's formed between his index finger and his thumb of his right hand, where that's angled towards, we can see, if we sketch this in perfectly, we can see that it is very much outside of his trail shoulder. So both hands in quite a strong position here. Now, to some, that might indicate that a player might draw the golf ball, but consistently throughout Stewart Cink's career, he's played a fade. And we're going to show you some of the reasons why that's the case. First of which, we can see the ball is forward in the stance. So that would certainly be a fade bias piece, and as would the shaft being angled slightly back as well. Stewart Cink has opened up in interviews in the past talking about some of his own swing thoughts as he stood over the golf ball and some of the real keys that he's latched onto throughout his career. And he has emphasized the fact that during his backswing, he tries to feel like his lead shoulder gets over towards his trail knee in order to try and facilitate a full shoulder turn. Another swing thought that's very much related to getting the lead shoulder over to that right knee in the backswing is that Cink has said that he tries to load his weight into his right side during the backswing. Now, those two swing thoughts are very much related to each other, and when Stewart gets to the top of his backswing, working with those two concepts, that then has a very influential role on what it does to his spine angle. So he tries to build in power into his backswing with these two thoughts. Not every professional will try and build in power into their swing the same way, however, and if we bring Stewart back to his address position and sketch in a helpful reference points here just inside his lead shoulder, and as we climb him to the top of his backswing, that thought of trying to get his weight and his lead shoulder across then creates some forward flexion of that spine, more so compared to that of which his peers on tour, some of his peers on tour, will experience. And when we take a zoomed in look at this, we see this gap between his upper spine and that initial reference line. Some professionals will try and close that gap by the time they work their way to the top of the backswing here, and they will actually try and build in power from doing so, because as they extend their thoracic spine a little bit more, that is a way that you can build in power. So no correct or incorrect way to do it, but I would say there are easier and harder ways of doing it. And for most amateur golfers watching this video, trying to get some insights of how they can improve their own game, I would be encouraging your upper spine to stay on that line if you don't feel like you have the skill level of that of a Stewart Cink to be able to pull off this move across. If you go across in the backswing, you better be extremely talented and well coordinated in getting back across. So as I say, no correct or incorrect ways to do it, but certainly in my opinion easier and harder ways. To show you a look at a more recent swing of Stewart's to highlight some of the key pieces in his downswing and also highlight a new move in his downswing, which I feel is helping him lead the distance stats on the Seniors Tour this year. If we bring him to the top of the backswing, now I would also like to highlight that this is certainly looking like a smaller head behind the golf ball here, so likely to be more like a fairway wood for this shot here from a more recent swing video of Stewart's. But as we work Stewart to the top of the backswing here, as we said, face on view, you would see the lead shoulder trying to get over to that trail knee, weight trying to shift into that trail side, and how he works his way into the downswing is certainly a fade biased move where we see the shaft pitch quite steep, getting above the shoulder, like so, as the lead arm unpins off the chest quickly, coming out at P5, position 5 in the golf swing, and that arm unpinning from the chest and moving out is steepening the shaft and also moving his club path left, so encouraging him to hit that fade shot that he has been consistently producing throughout his career. As we continue to unwind Stewart from here, the newly added piece to his technique is the move that you're about to see from his lead foot. So this explosion that you see from his lead foot, let's rewind and show you that one again here. That explosion up through the lead side is really an indicator that there's an awful lot of force going through that lead leg. And one of the most common features we see in the longest of hitters is that they transfer more weight and more weight sooner into that lead side. So that is very noticeable how much force is being applied into that lead side by that lead foot jumping back. Now, for amateur golfers out there watching this and trying to glean something from this, it must also be noted that this, for someone who doesn't have the skill level of a Stewart Cink, will usually come with a trade-off, and they will have to sacrifice some club face and club path control when they apply this move. So they may well start hitting the ball further, but they may well start missing more fairways and not really get the benefit from that added distance. However, if you're as talented of a player as Stewart Cink, you can afford to introduce this move as he has done and climb your way to the top of the distance stats, which I'm going to pull up onto the screens here. So as you can see here, to this point in the year, in 2026, he is very much sitting atop those distance stats, and of course that is playing a role in the amount of trophies that he's been able to get his hands on this year. So a phenomenal action. Hopefully you've really enjoyed today's deep dive on Stewart Cink, a player who has been at the top of the game for a number of decades now, and no doubt as he continues to ply his trade on the Champions Tour, those victories are only going to be continued to be amassed and further clog his trophy cabinet. If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe buttons. It really helps with the growth of the channel, but it also just ensures that you won't miss out on any future content coming from myself here on the channel, of which there's plenty lined up to be released very shortly. For any golfer who has stayed until the end of a lengthy video like this, which is quite detailed, orientated, and very heavy on the educational side of things when it comes to the golf swing, you strike me as someone who is serious about learning and serious about finding ways to improve their own golf. If that is the case, then you can reach out and connect with myself today, regardless of where you are in the world. My name is Seán Marks. I'm a PGA professional and I specialize in teaching the full swing, and I help golfers worldwide through an app called Skillest that I use for my online coaching, help players reach their full potential tee to green. The online program that I run on Skillest that helps people of all ages and all skill levels reach their full potential tee to green is called the Long Game Transformation Program. The minimum commitment for this program for students looking to sign up is that of a 3-month period. Often is the case where students want to continue on long beyond this point because they've seen the value in it, their game has seen the improvements, and they want to continue to push the boundaries and see what's possible. But let's say that you only wanted to sign up for the first 3 months. Here is exactly what I can promise you will learn. You will learn the 3 fundamentals required to completely transform your long game, and that is strike, direction, and distance. The first, in strike, you need the ability to control your low points. Second of all, when we touch on direction, you need to be able to have a predictable curve and a consistent shot shape that you can rely on out on the course. And third is distance. You need to be able to know how to pump enough distance into your game to be competitive at the level of this sport that you desire to play at. This program is designed to give you as much support as you need. There's nothing pre-recorded. Everything is personalized to the individual. There's open communication channels that you can message me whenever you want. Anytime you have a question, you can message me. There's unlimited feedback on the program. And if you're ever in doubt as to whether you're doing a drill correctly or whatever the case may be, you can message me and get feedback within a turnaround time of never any more than 24 hours. If you're ready to start improving today, I will leave a link underneath the video in the description box where you can download Skillist. Alternatively, you can search for it on the App Store and get started on your improvement journey today. If you want in-person coaching with myself in Ireland, I also work with players based in Ireland online, but if you'd like in-person coaching, you can see my booking diary on my website, seanmarksgolf.com. So I look forward to seeing you, whether it's in person or remotely online, very soon.